Hey there, comic book friends and fiends. It's Rob here in front of the Great Wall. And I have two boxes from CGC, so let's open them up and take a look. Okay, so these two boxes just came back from CGC. They were off at Brian Michael Bendis signing event. So, you know how it works. They have people come in, send your books in, get them signed, encapsulated, sent back to you. It's pretty much about all I'm using CGC for at this moment in time is for signature event items, and I love signature books. So here we go. I've already kind of cut the tapes and on these things, so take a look. Typical standard fashion. So when you're sending, when they send back 1, 2, or 3 slabs, typically you get a smaller box like this. They're going to have some large bubble wrap once around it, and then you're going to have your book inside. That'll have some cardboard and rubber bands. I do like these. It works very well. It's a nice sturdy box, and I will hang on to these typically, and I use them to reship out slabs because I know that everybody likes to send medium flat rate boxes, and I do use the medium flat rate boxes on occasion for shipping out slabs. But the reality is they don't have enough crush space, and you run a risk every time you use one. Anyways, all right. So this first book up here, this is the Invincible Iron Man #1. So this is volume 3. So this is after Riri Williams takes over the title, and she's starting to get ready to become Ironheart. And so this issue here is the first cover appearance of Riri Williams as Ironheart. She actually doesn't take up the mantle of Ironheart and wear the Ironheart armor until issue 3, but we get this cover appearance here on the issue A. Here we are, 9.8, and it is signed there now by Brian Michael Bendis, who of course wrote the story. So that's cool. These were books I had raw in my PC. Actually, this book is one I picked up off the shelf. Actually, I think so this book is definitely one I picked up off the shelf when my son was getting into comics, or when I first took my son to the comic store to get some comics. Iron Man was one of those characters he was interested in back in 2016, and so we were picking up Iron Man and happened to get the first Riri Williams and all that stuff off the shelf at cover price. So definitely great. I'm always amazed by what CGC is willing to count as a 9.8. To be honest with you, if I sent this to CBCS, I doubt it would be a 9.8. There are a couple spots of color rub on the back along the spine, and it looks like one small color breaking tick. But CGC is the gold standard, right? So there you are. Anyways, 9.8. Iron Man #1. Alright, and the second box should have 2 books in it. So these were all sent in for the Brian Michael Bendis signing, and they got sent to me in 2 different batches. And here's why. And so this is something you need to be cognizant of when you send books to CGC. CGC, of course, has a submission charge. So they're, in addition to your charges of doing stuff, they're going to charge you for each form submission. And so even though I filled out all 3 of these at one time, they broke it up into 2 submissions. And the reason for that is that these 2 books, I broke with my tradition and decided to go ahead and pay for the custom labels. That made these 2 books different than that first book. Even though they're all modern books, they're all being signed, they're all being slapped, the only difference is the label, and for that, CGC charges a separate submission form charge, and is going to charge you a separate return shipping form charge. So something to be aware of when you're sending books in and you're thinking about, if you're ever thinking about using those custom labels, is making sure that either you're sending all your books with those custom labels or none of them. Otherwise, just be aware that you're going to have this where it's going to break it out into these different things. All right, so this first book up, this is a book that we've seen before on the show. So this is my Ultimate Fallout 4. This is the first printing. This is it was a 9.6 when I sent it in. So I bought this book originally as a 9.6 slabbed with a Clayton Crane signing on it. And then I've since then turned around and had it cracked and sent it in for the Bailey signing. And now I cracked it again and had Brian Michael Bendis sign it. So it's now a triple signed book. Probably at this point, if I were to get it signed again, maybe Pacelli. I could, I don't know, there's several. I mean, because Hickman and Spencer are on story, and Pacelli and LaRocca are on art, along with Landing is also on the cover, along with Bailey. But for right now, what we've got essentially is we have one of the writers, one of the interior artists, and one of the cover artists. So there we go, triple signed. Clayton Crane, Bagley, and Brian Michael Bendis. Ultimate Fall 4. And then I went ahead and had that Miles Morales SpiderMan custom label put on there. I could have gone either way on this book, whether or not to include it or not, but I did. All right, and so this book, by the way, so 9.6 Ultimate Fallout 4 is very common. A lot of times people have the 9.6. It's because of the poly bag. These books came in a poly bag, and poly bags, when they're stacked up, there's a seam on the bag, and it gets a press that just people can't get, or a crease that people can't press out. That's not the case with this book. This book does not have a poly bag crease on it whatsoever. It's beautifully clean from that aspect. My problem is instead there is color rub along the spine here. You can see there, here, at the bottom, where to go. I had it a second ago. And then there's there again at the staple up here. So you got a couple spots of some color rub there on the backside. That's my my defects on this book here. Otherwise, still beautiful copy, 9.6 triple sign. Of course, oh, and if you don't know, I'm sorry, I didn't mention, just in case, the key significance of this book. This is the first appearance of Miles Morales. Right, so Peter Parker dies. First appearance of the new Spider-Man, Miles Morales. All right, last book up on the stack. So this is not really a key from a standpoint of there's no first appearances or anything else. The only thing is the first issue in a series, although it's volume 3. This is Spider-Man #1, and look at Brian Michael Bendis did a beautiful job signing it in white paint marker right along that spider web line, so it blends in and looks like it's part of the web line. That is a beautiful signature placement. Of course, we have the Miles Morales custom label, of course, with this beautiful Pacelli cover. What's really interesting though is CGC has mislabeled this book, the back label. Nothing I'm going to probably go on about, but I don't know if I can make it show up here. It says on their key information, oh, come on, it's not going to focus for us. Well, it says collects Spider-Man #1 through 5, April through August 2016. Well, this book is from 2016, and this is just issue 1. So it's like they labeled this as if this was the trade paperback instead of the individual issue. There you are. But this is a beautiful cover. I do like this cover quite a bit. Again, this was another one of those books that I picked up off the shelf. My son was in, again, when he first started reading comic books in 2016. SpiderMan was a thing he was interested in. I asked him, and we decided that he might be interested more in the new Spider-Man versus Daddy's old Spider-Man. It turned out he wasn't really all that keen on too many comics at all for very long, and ended up getting out of it. But he had reignited my interest. I never realized this. Just in the background here, there's a sign for Parker Industries. Which, of course, at the time, Peter Parker was running, and looks like maybe there's a model, a poster with a model. Maybe that's supposed to be Mary Jane. I don't know. There's a Captain America off to the side. Interesting. Anyways, so yeah, 9.8. Oh, that's a nice detail. I didn't realize. So, watermark behind the 9.8, we have Spider-Man. There, his face looking through. Interesting. Was not aware of that. Okay, cool. So there you go. Let's go, man. We got Spider-Man #1, signed by Brian Michael Bendis. Our Ultimate Fallout 4, signed by Brian Michael Bendis. And, of course, our Invincible Iron Man, signed by Brian Michael Bendis. That's easy for me to say. Of course, this one was going to go back up on the wall, which is fine because it's time for us to actually take down Star Wars #1. Has to come down. Not because we're upset with it or anything else, but because it's time for it to get shipped off. We're going to crack this guy and send this back to CGC. Actually, we'll send it to CGC and let them crack it for a Howard Chaykin signing event. So that way I can have all three, Howard Chaykin, Roy Thomas, and Tom Palmer, have signed that. So that comes down, and we will go ahead and put the Ultimate Fallout 4 in its place. And this is actually a little bit loose. It's time for a new rubber band because that's scaring me how loose that is. This rubber band is worn. So this is a trick I do. Just guys, in case you guys are wondering, how does Rob hang those books on the wall? So I'm using comic mount, or not comic mounts, collector's mounts, and they're just attached with some tape or double-sided command strips, and I get these big rubber bands, and I do, because CGC books and CBCS books and PGX books, they're all different. I'll just put this rubber band around it here, and then I can put my book in, and there we go. And actually, as I'm looking at that, might need to be redone. That looks like that command strip's starting to give. So I'll get a new command strip and rehang it there a bit. But anyways, that rubber band then holds it up against those C-clamps. All right, guys, there you go. So, ta-da! He's up. Miles is back up there where he belongs. Although, actually, he probably belongs over there because chronological order. We'll take care of that later. All right, guys, until next time, collect what you want. Don't listen to anybody, especially this rambling fool. I'm just a fat man with a fat stack of comics and a fat opinion. Thanks for watching.